Okay, it is 2 p.m. We'll call the meeting today, Monday, August 24th, of the Public Property and Law Enforcement Committee. First order is roll call.
Marcus Joma,
Here.
Philip Livingston. Philip, are you online? Okay. Laura Negro. Laura Negro. Jim Schultz.
Here.
Paul Wilhelm.
Here.
Thank you.
Second is approval of the agenda.
Wilhelm will make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
Motion has been made to approve and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Number 3, public comment. And as stated, excuse me, for public comment. All right. We're going to limit to 3 minutes per speaker. And hopefully we won't hit that 30-minute total time limit. So do we want to take the first person who's online there? So are we going to have her take over
Laura,
the
did
meeting?
you want to take over on the meeting, or should we have Jim run the meeting?
I can take the meeting.
Okay. I'm going to turn up the volume.
Sorry about that. It was a tech issue. It just kept spinning and spinning and spinning.
Okay, so Adam Baker is the first one that had his hand raised for a public comment.
Did we have a list of everybody they signed in?
I do have lists here, yes, and I'll grab them.
Thank you. And you said Brian?
Adam Baker.
Adam Baker. Can you have him come up to the microphone by
He's
you
on
then?
Zoom.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. My name's Adam Baker. I live in Ashland, joining on Zoom. Thank you for having me today. I'm just a resident coming in here to talk to you today about flock cameras. I've read the county's own paperwork, and I'd just like to tell you what's in it. Ashland County's flock camera renews on September 10th for another 2 years, and nobody on this board voted for it because nobody could have. I filed the records request this July. Chief Deputy Dawson, who's been very helpful throughout, answered that this contract is handled inside the sheriff's office and renews on its own. I asked whether the county gave notice to stop it, and his answer was 4 simple words: no notice was given. The order form he signed requires 30 days. For a September 10th renewal, that deadline was August 11th, and it went by quietly. I'm not saying anybody did anything improper. No one did anything wrong. I'm just saying there was no public step in it, and that's the part this board can change. The other thing in the paperwork is who can search it. The county's own sharing list, dated August 17th, shows nationwide search is turned on and names 754 different agencies across 38 states who have access to this camera's footage. I'll give the cameras their due. They don't use facial recognition, and they do help recover stolen vehicles and help with other crimes. But that does not justify the abuse of privacy and Fourth Amendment rights that comes with them, and to me, it's not even close. When the ACLU obtained Maryland plate reader records, 2 in every 1,000 scans produced a hit of any kind, 0.2%, And of those, 97% were a suspected registration or failed emissions test. That was Maryland years ago, but the same issue remains true of these cameras today. That means nearly everyone in this database is just a neighbor driving to work, not a lead, not a suspect, just what the camera caught along the way where regular people live their lives. No warrant, no suspicion, no way to opt out. That is not a small thing to renew without a vote. I know today is a reported not a vote, and that's exactly why I'm asking. Please send the flock contract to the full county board before you set the budget. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Who do we have next?
Mara,
Is Mara online then?
I'm right here in the courthouse. I'm
Okay,
right here in the courthouse. Okay, I'm Tamara Tupessis. I live at 615 Prentice Avenue in Ashland, Wisconsin. I'm a resident. And I have been in touch with people. I just shook the mayor's hand before I came here. And I have been in touch with the utility engineer. Madison is her first name. I'll butcher her last name. But these folks have been very kind and receptive to my concerns about the eviction of the wildlife just right in my own little backyard. The state bird, 3 robins nests, more than 14 robins died since Enbridge has been in, since my water utility has been changed, since the water pressure has been better, since my water now smells more like bleach than water. And I live in the most beautiful place in the world where water should always be a priority, not pushed back and not misjudged as to how much it affects everybody. You would not be here for not this water. That's why this committee is here. That's why I have lived here my whole life in Wisconsin. And I think that there is a mismanagement and a not listening by these people who I go to. I look them in the eye. I get, oh yeah, I really care. Oh yeah, but what about this? What about that? The best water system was the Roman water system. It was clay. Or just, go to your Adahi in the woods. Why do we need someone flocking us, taking a picture of us, getting our water, living our lives? This is corporations that are not people that are taking charge of our lives insidiously right here in Ashland, Wisconsin. They are coming in and stomping on our rights and the flora, the fauna, the life. This is life. And you are to be caretakers. We are caretakers. Nobody seems to care about my voice. I speak up every opportunity I have. And I want you to listen to me now. Take a breath. Enjoy that breath. I nearly died when the smoke came in. I really felt bad when I smelled all that bleach in my water, in my house, in my bathtub, that I need to make me feel better. And it's killing me little by little. And I think we need to take responsibility. We are a community. We are people. We're not those other things. Those other things aren't real. This is what's real. And my experience after being in a water family, both my grandfathers worked at breweries in Milwaukee, Pabst and Schlitz. I know water better than anybody. I ate more Bradford Beach sand. I lived in Cambridge, Wisconsin, where Enbridge blew up my water by my farmland. You let these people in and they will destroy us. They are destroying us now. And you're not listening, you're not paying attention. And this is not arbitrary. This is not flagrant. This is responsible citizenship.
Sorry,
This is stewardship.
not to mean to cut you off, but we do have a 3-minute time.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you for your
Have a nice
comments.
day. Yeah.
Who is next?
Lydia?
Good afternoon. My name is Lydia Christensen. I was born here in Ashland, Wisconsin. I'm a U.S. Senate candidate in Michigan. I came here to speak on two things, both the flock camera situation and the Enbridge cooperation with the Sheriff's Department. I would ask that the board take serious consideration of both of the public comments previously stated before me. Both come from reputable people who have made their concerns known. I would like to mention that flock cameras are very likely unconstitutional. The Supreme Court recently ruled that your phone falls underneath the papers and effects of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America. Ashland County will face potentially lawsuits if they continue to violate U.S. citizens' constitutional rights. Additionally, I would like to say that the federal courts have ruled that Enbridge has been trespassing on tribal treaty protected land, and that it is absolutely time that the board takes the time to reconsider and strip this cooperation from the county. Whether that means that we kick Enbridge out of Wisconsin or we kick Enbridge out of Michigan, they are violating treaty rights. It's not even environmental risk that I'm talking about, but the environmental risk is also documented and very real. Thank you.
Okay, who is next?
I don't have any other sign-up sheets. Oh. You could go to any of my.
These are two pages each. This is the Bayfield County ordinance that your neighbors passed. We'll try to be brief, as I understand 3 minutes is of course brief, and there's not really enough time to mention all the harassment that's been going on against local residents by law enforcement. The company called SIPS, who's their security team, and how they are being directed. Your law enforcement is being directed by SIPS to target individuals and harass individual citizens. They're parking, Enbridge employees are parking in wrongful
Excuse me?
places. Yeah.
Could you state your name and your address, please?
I'm sorry. I'm Matthew Bork. I'm not really comfortable with giving my address at this point in time because, like I said,
Are you an Ashland resident?
I am an Ashland resident.
Okay, thank you.
Brought out this ordinance because I also want to notify all of you that the agreement that was filed and signed by Ashland County is against Wisconsin law. The Bayfield County did a wonderful job of making that agreement transparent to make sure the officers are being taken care of and paid for their services, for extraordinary services. We would appreciate that you scrap the agreement and review this ordinance, support the adoption of this ordinance, bring it to the Board of Supervisors. This is the appropriate method to make things transparent. Right now, you all seem to be working behind a veil, blocking all information requests, and you're essentially targeting all the local residents and targeting local residents. All the Board of Supervisors was advised of the Wisconsin records law that Wisconsin would be that they would, if they signed it, they would be breaking Wisconsin law. But they decided to sign it anyways. I understand that they were put in a pressure situation and given 5 days to make this decision, even though their lawyer said, oh, that's plenty of time through the weekend. It's really not. Y'all have known about this a long time. I don't know how long the Sheriff's Department had been talking about that agreement, but to drop it on and use threatening things to say, either you sign this right now or you're going to be $1 million in the hole and and Enbridge is going to bankrupt you is a straight up threat. I've been threatened by Enbridge security. I've been stalked by security. I'm not the only one. They've been speeding down roads. Every complaint that the residents have gone to call you on has turned into more Enbridge creating stories to target those people. They're compiling their stories, giving multiple things and trying to say that stopping residents from getting to the doctor's appointment. And when the doctors, when the local resident gets angry and says, get the hell out of my way, that local resident gets charged because the Enbridge workers are compiling stories and conspiring to basically say, this guy threatened us. When in fact, these residents are the one that are living here. The sheriff's department is not just protecting them and allowing them to do things illegally, which means parking on the road. They have their own easements. Okay. These are public roads. Citizens can, have access, but Enbridge owns these other roads. They have places to park. They're stopping up traffic and making dangerous situations. Today, I just got back from a situation where officers were on their easement while construction was actively working. That's an OSHA violation if they're not wearing their hard hats, their safety rims. Every single worker on that place knows what those safety things are. Enbridge is not following safety, but yet the officers show up and say, we're here to enforce safety and are keeping people away from the public lands and the waterways, the publicly accessible waterways that they can legally stand in. And it's been turned into a bully system. And I would like you to all go home, look at this ordinance, pass it up. I understand whether that agreement can be put to the side, all those records can be opened up, because without having any transparency, you now are being part of a conspiracy to target people. And I don't think you want to put yourself in that position. So I would appreciate it if you'd look at this. I understand that the Board of Supervisors meeting has been canceled this month. A little weird since they went on an Enbridge tour instead, but is what it is. So please review this, talk to your fellow people about it. Please support your local residents and stop them from harassing and targeting and stalking. Literally, these cars are driving around. I talked to one of the security guys. He says, "You've been following me around for 5 miles." I said, isn't that stalking? He says, "No, this is what my bosses told me to do. They told me to jump in the car and start following you around everywhere." It's not just going from that, it's going to spreading that information to other local residents that are getting other local residents with propaganda saying, drones are dive bombing. This person's doing that. There's been no criminal activity. I don't know where these rumors are coming from other than a propaganda piece. Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate you all listening to us.
Thank you. Is there anybody else there inside looking to speak?
I do not see any.
All right. Is there anyone else online that wanted to speak? Anyone online? Anyone online? Okay, seeing none, we can close the public comment and move on to reports and updates. Review the quarterly financials.
So Laura, I'm just filling in for Lori and Dan today. I'm not
Isn't
sure.
there somebody from the sheriff's department?
Dave is here.
Dave could go ahead and handle that then.
Okay.
Hi there.
Hey, Dave.
Hi, just looking at the general ledger here. Currently, as you can see to the right, the percentage allocated was, we're actually doing really good regarding the actual budget. Now, granted, we are, without one position in recreation and, one office spot. But as far as the actual allocated budget, we're doing really good. Now, I know when we look at the numbers, the jail right now is doing good. We have to send approximately 4 people by the end of the year to training. We've already extended the allowable time before they get sent to training by state. So we're gonna see some numbers end of this year and then beginning of next year when it comes to overtime. But after those 4 come back, we should be pretty good. We should be really good actually with our jail side of things.
Are we
anything-
fully staffed in the jail then?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, we are.
Okay.
I know there's I think 1 kitchen spot maybe, that could be open. But right now we are currently fully staffed as far as correctional goes. We do, just so you know, we do have 1 resignation. He's moving to another county. He is a sergeant in the jail. So that spot will be available or open. So there'll be potentially a promotion, and then 1 jailer spot will be, I think he is due, I think beginning of September is when his last day is.
Okay.
So,
I don't want to, I just need to interrupt you for a second. Can we move the camera over to point at Dave just for a little housekeeping thing?
Sorry.
It's okay. You got a lot to do. There he is. He's sitting in my chair. Okay, Dave, you can go on.
Okay. Anything else as far as the budgetary issues? I don't believe we have a current issue as far as staffing. I know that we're doing pretty good with the numbers we have. Yeah.
Did anybody else have any questions for Dave on that budget piece? This is kind of
Yeah,
us
this is-
reviewing.
This is Jim here.
Okay.
Is there anything on here comparing, like last year, any running totals, comparisons? Obviously, things are probably going up.
Yeah, cost of things are going up. The biggest hit we'll take for next year will be the healthcare costs within the jail. I think it's projected 5% increase. That's what I budgeted for 2027. Obviously, we can't predict accidents, but we know that the healthcare costs will go up. Food, obviously gasoline, for the squad cars. Yeah, all those things we kind of can predict, but we kind of are limited right now as far as 2027. I did have the 2026 versus 2027, and we are still we're still above where we were for last year, so we're doing pretty good. And we had a lot of open positions last year in the jail, so yeah, we're doing pretty good.
Is there any other questions for Dave on the budget piece? Well, at least Jim asked a question this time. It's a good thing. So moving on is courthouse maintenance update.
I believe last time we had talked about an issue in the main breaker panel
Mhm.
and our solar system. Still waiting on quotes for the solar system. I did reach out to them. They're just super busy with actually some other projects that they're working on for the county. The panel has been fixed with no hiccups. We did have a capacitor to go bad in our main exhaust fan up in the attic, but I was able to fix that myself, so it was cheap and easy. As far as that, looking forward, just shortly here, beginning prepared for the winter, and no other hiccups as of right now, so hope it just stays that way.
right? It's always the goal. Did you know if they are looking for grants to help with the solar?
I believe that'll be on the table once we actually get a price for updating it. It's been a bit of a chore for him because it's an outdated system, so it's kind of revamping, almost redesigning the whole system, if that makes sense.
Wonderful.
That's what
Sounds
I
really,
said.
sounds really cheap and easy, like your other
Exactly.
thing. Um, anything else you need to highlight?
Not as of right now. I think that's about it.
Any of the committee members have any questions? Hearing none, we will move on to the sheriff department report. Reports. Dave, you got that one too?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead and shoot.
Okay, so these numbers are, because these numbers are completely, complete as far as, we're still in August, and I switched and usually September, the end of September is our quarter three.
Yeah,
So they're preliminary. Obviously I'll adjust them for our next meeting. So this is just strictly July through August 17th.
okay.
All right, so totals 31 arrests, 11 referred to prosecution, 161 citations, 117 complaints to investigate, and 1,428 calls for service. Total number of bookings so far, 121 as of last week. 31 is our current average for this quarter. See, looks like one transport, 8 hours for a total mileage of 526. Year-to-date mileage, 4,270. 0 juvenile transports, 7 other wants and warrant transports. Total mileage, 2,867. Year-to-date, it's 15,998. And these transports are anything that's court ordered, warrants, picking up or from the prisons to bring back for court dates, and et cetera. Current number of inmates being boarded is 1, and current number of inmates on electronic monitors 3. And that is all for the report.
Has any of these numbers gone up with us having to assist with the Enbridge project?
Calls for service, yes. We've had some increase with calls for service. Regarding anything from a 911 call to an accident, we have seen some increase.
Okay. Excuse me, that was a good squeak. For the next time, I'd like to see those calls separated out on this spreadsheet, so that way we know what kind of calls and issues we're having through that, so we can compare.
You're saying separate the calls for service relation
for-
to,
the Enbridge.
okay.
And then, the breakdown, who is like, have that separated out for if there is people that get arrested or referred to court for charges and such. Does anybody else have any? Boy, I got another squeak. Does anybody else have another question? Any questions on the law enforcement report? All right. Next is the fun part, the flock cameras. So you want to give us a good rundown on that? Because I thought we didn't own any.
Yes, we have currently one camera in contract with Flock. That camera is on 13 and 77 intersection in the city of Mellon. The sheriff,
Yeah.
last year, the sheriff approached the city of Mellon and asked for permission to place that camera within the city limits. And it was granted. I can tell you, I doing some record requests with Adam Baker, who's online.
Mhm.
Very transparent. You know, I understand the concern. I also understand the importance of the tool that's being used. I can tell you from doing audits that the last person besides myself to touch or log into Flock from our agency was mid-July. I can tell you in June, I believe it was mid-June, that camera did help solve a incident and within the city limits of Mellon, where an individual did fire a firearm. An off-duty officer was walking with his family. Within 30 seconds, dispatch was able to give other responding units that plate information and vehicle description. Adam Baker online did mention that, you know, to its credit, you know, Flock does not take pictures of people. I understand the importance of people realizing that, you know, it's a fixed position on it, you know, that camera does not move. There's no facial recognition, as Adam pointed out. Monthly, I do an audit. Basically, the large numbers that I gave Adam, because I gave Adam everything from January, I think, to current of the network, it's called, where other agencies, they utilize a search function called nationwide search. That search is that if they're looking for a missing person, and there's an amber alert, a silver alert, a green alert, they can type in that plate or partial, and it basically searches all those cameras within that designated area that they actually designate they want to search. So there is some large numbers. It doesn't tell me if that plate that they were searching for was spotted on our camera. It just says that our camera was used in that search. Obviously, when it comes to that tool, there is potential for being over abused. And I understand that completely. And that's why, you know, with audits, with policy, we limit that potential. But with our agency of 20 sworn or 19 sworn currently, the last person besides myself was mid last month that actually logged in. I can tell you we don't have time to search it for just randomly. And there was 4 incidences, I believe, that was kind of like, I guess, the most searched reason why. One was welfare, one was theft, one was traffic violations, and I believe the other one was criminal damage to property. They were searching for a car that they had a description of. They type in a description, not a plate, and they get a slew, which requires the work still to be done on the investigator or whoever's searching. But it kind of helps, that tool helps, especially in a rural area, investigation wise.
So on these reports that you pull, it tells what reason they searched?
Yes, yes, ma'am. So I required, when we got the cameras, I required them to actually put in a case number and a reason why they're searching. So it gives me who searched it within the organization, why, when, what they searched, and, what time they searched. They're required to do a double authentic modification, this MFA, before they actually access the account. So it's pretty locked down as far as that goes.
So mostly all those numbers that Adam had spoke about, it's other people searching our cameras?
Yes, ma'am. So when they do a nationwide search and they select that geographic area, whether it be Midwest or just nationwide, our cameras included in those searches. But it won't tell me if they've actually got a result from our camera. For instance, we'll get calls from neighboring counties. Example is Iron County was dealing with someone who was suicidal. They left their parents' house, and the camera picked them up coming back towards their parents' house. Threats of a firearm. Well, there was a firearm inside the motorcycle saddlebag, but they were able to respond back to the house because they knew sort of the direction that he would be going where our camera was placed. So they were able to get there, and that essentially helped that person out before something bad happened. So that's another that's just an example of another county using our camera when they did a nationwide search on, it helped them.
So every place that uses these cameras has to have a contract with Flock?
Yes, Flock requires a contract. Usually it's what I've seen is 3 years. It's an auto renewal. Basically the first year, and then it auto renews. There's no signatory, requirement. There's no, it auto renews.
How long is this data kept?
What specific data you're asking?
So if there's scans on this, so is it a week's worth of license plates? Is it a month's worth of license plates?
30 days.
30 days. And then everything's deleted?
I can't say if it's deleted on their part because the data is kept with Flock. We have access to all the data, but it's not kept locally.
Is there a contract with this that we could see also with Flock?
Yeah, I provided Adam as well, the same contract. I can send it to you guys.
That would be cool.
And then my audits, just, my audits go back longer than that. As far as access to the system, locally, our access.
Okay.
Does Flock only contract with law enforcement?
No, they do businesses, they do
Okay,
HOAs, they
Yep.
do,
township governments?
yep, they do townships.
Okay,
Yeah.
So a HOA could access our camera?
No, I limit, so what I did was they have to ask or share. So what I did was there's only one federal entity that's listed that I allow access to. It's I believe it's out of Indiana or Illinois. It's a park service. But federal entities can't ask. I block their requests. So it's just law enforcement. that ask for us. And like, you have other entities, fusion centers, HIDA centers, that ask for requests, but
that's all blocked.
all law enforcement, yeah.
When did we take over that camera in Mellon?
September of last year, I think it went live. There were several planning issues that they had to deal with for the state, but I think it went live September area.
And so this policy has been in place for about a year?
No, not this policy.
Okay.
This one I kind of revised. I added my job title on it. Basically, second page, you'll see where it says chief deputy. Yeah, it's just revise it if we need it. I put myself out, as far as responsibility goes. Kind of made it where I'm responsible
trouble?
for the audits. Yeah,
You're in trouble?
yeah.
And this has been reviewed by corporate counsel?
No, this policy is from Lexipol. It's basically one of their good practice policies. There's several policies that Lexipol, we use Lexipol for all of our law enforcement policies. Some are state mandatory, federal, and then there's good practice. So this is one of their good practice policies. And when
So when I asked you about our flock cameras before and you said we didn't have any,
when we've had it
sometime
since-
early this summer.
We've had one since September of last year.
Okay.
So. And where it says ALPR, this policy also incorporates, which we don't have, but it also incorporates license plates readers within vehicles. So.
Why did we take over this camera if we didn't have it previously?
We didn't take over a camera. We entered into a contract with Flock. The sheriff,
Okay.
the administration, just basically, they asked for permission from the city of Mellon to place the camera within the city limits.
Wow.
Hasn't that camera been there for like ever?
Yeah. It just wasn't operational.
No, so it's a fake camera?
They-
A
they had
fancy
some-
flashing camera?
It had some issues with battery life because, as you know, our
Every-
sunshine doesn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fun. Does anyone else on the committee have any questions about the flock camera?
Paul here. I'm wondering, are there any more flat camera locations under consideration at this time?
No. Flock wanted us to get more. They were trying to force us to get 3 more. Their policy was they wanted every agency to have at least 4, and we told them no. The sheriff was very adamant that if we had to get more, that we were gonna cancel, so,
Thank you.
yes, sir.
Is there a monthly fee, yearly? Is it free?
It's not free. It's not free, unfortunately. It's 3,000 annually. 3,000. annually.
What?
Is there any more questions from the committee on the flock cameras? All right, hearing none. Just scroll back up to the agenda. Jail administration. We don't really have Matt anymore, but that report. Kinda did that already. Who's in jail? So this stuff is out of order. Anything else on jail administration, Dave?
No, ma'am.
Then let's go on to Christina for emergency management.
Hello, Christina, Emergency Management. Hazard mitigation plan, we got a resolution in June. For that, it has been turned into FEMA to be finalized. The whole process has been delayed several times due to government shutdowns and, but it is on the road to being finalized. Consolidated PSAP, they're looking for a new director. The current one is, now that everything is pretty much smoothed out and they're running quite well, she is looking to step down and have someone else take that role full time. They recently added a new program that helps dispatchers with life-saving directions for callers until EMS gets there. So far, they've had several life-saving success stories where the dispatcher was able to give the caller directions on different CPR and things like that and holding pressure. And so that's exciting. EPCRA and EMPG grants. EMPG last year, Wisconsin Emergency Management had to file a lawsuit to receive the funding for the full year of 2025. They won that lawsuit, so we are receiving the full funding for last year. The application for this year's funding just came out on Friday. I'm almost done with that application. It's due at the end of September, but it should be done by tomorrow. I also applied for the EPCRA computer hazmat grant that was submitted last month. We should be receiving the award letter soon. This grant is a yearly grant that I apply for. $2,000 goes towards emergency management to be used to update computer equipment. And then $6,000 of that grant is for our hazmat team, which is at the Ashland Fire Department. So that has been applied for and we'll be hearing about that soon. Outreach, I assisted with Clean Sweep. I helped plan the all county employee picnic, helped with the Ashland County Sheriff's Department with National Night Out. I had the Genesis emergency alert flyers around the Ashland County Fair, hoping to get more people to sign up for that. As far as training goes, I completed all the Know Before Internet trainings, completed Public Information Basics. It's a class by Wisconsin Emergency Management. I completed the Emergency Operations Center organization and coordination methods from Wisconsin Emergency Management. I did the Joint Information Center planning for tribal, state, and local public information officers. That was also through Wisconsin Emergency Management. I completed a livestock response with WEM. I completed a project lifesaver training, and I also completed coordinated response exercise with the pipeline safety program. I attended all the Northwest Regional Wisconsin Emergency Management monthly meetings, which is a grant requirement. I attended all Fire Association and EMS Council meetings. I attended meetings with the Preparedness Planning Group. And I also met with Ashland Health and Human Services about shelters. As far as major grants and funding, the Senate Appropriations Bill for $3,155,000 for the Emergency Services Radio Infrastructure Project was earmarked for Ashland County, working closely with Sheriff Subke, Chief Deputy Dawson, Erica Hanikel and Caroline Twombly, we submitted the 2 applications to the Department of Homeland Security COPS Grant Office for review. We should be hearing about that in October. So that's my summer in a nutshell.
You always give a good long report. Busy, busy, busy. Does anyone have any questions for Christina? Next is Enbridge updates. Don't know who has that one.
Would that be a Dan update, which we would table to the next meeting?
I suppose it would be. Either that or the sheriff, but neither one is there, so. All right, let's move on to approval of the meeting minutes from June 29th. Do I have a motion for that? Or any corrections?
Jim will make a motion.
Do I have a second?
Wilhelm will second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Nobody used their mics?
They all said they didn't use their mics.
Naughty, naughty, naughty. And then we've got a solar panels on county property Farm Road. I suppose that's a Dan thing again.
Laura, this is Pat Kinney.
Yep.
I can speak to this one.
Okay.
Back on February 17th, I brought to a zoning meeting a discussion of considering putting solar panels, expanding the Ordock solar farm that's out there. In 2019, Xcel Energy put in a community solar garden there, and they used the company One Energy out of Madison to put that in. It's a 1 megawatt DC or 0.7 megawatt AC solar farm. The county owns 20 acres adjacent to that. And so one of the things I've been thinking about is we look at our comp plans and we talk about climate change, sustainability, getting off fossil fuels, being more independent on local energy, and from an economic development standpoint, producing more of our energy here. The Bayfront Power Plant in Ashland only produces about half the electricity that we use here. In the next couple of years, they're going to start their planning process to make improvements and upgrades there. So from an economic development standpoint, one of the things I think about is, we send money outside this area for the electricity that we use. We don't keep those local jobs here. So if we expand this on that county parcel, Joma Electric has people that are well-versed with solar farms at this point, and equipment and talent. So it would support some local jobs there. The county's owned that parcel for about 20 years. We let a farmer hay that parcel. The company that would install the solar farm, we have a proposal from them to use 15 acres of that. The other 5 are probably too wet. They would pay us $800 per acre per year, so that's $12,000 annually rent on that parcel with 2% annual increases, a 30-year lease with an option for additional 10 years. So it would support some jobs, would address some of our goals with climate change. The county would still own the parcel. And then a generation down the road, if the county wanted to build something there, the county would still have that parcel. Back in December, I got a packet of information from a company wanted to put in a utility scale solar farm with my property east of Mason, the farmland I own, with my place literally as the center of that. So that sent me down the road of doing a lot of reading. When you look at aerial maps for northern Wisconsin and think kind of north of Spooner, there's not a lot of farm fields compared to woods. And then you have to look at where the high voltage power lines are. My property has one high voltage power line post on it. And so they want to buy 15 to 20 acres just for a new substation and battery storage. So in Ashland, they're proposing battery storage as part of that too.
So when you look at where the high voltage power lines are and the distribution lines off the high voltage power lines, and then where substations are, many of which are not adequate to put in a solar farm, there's very few places up here where we have the ability to put in a solar farm without a larger investment or local landowners agreeing to say yes to that. This is one of the few places up here where the economics work. It's small, but there just aren't going to be that many places where someone's going to say yes to this, and it would connect to either a high voltage power line or a distribution line, which is the one where Xcel Energy has the solar farm right now. So there's limited places that we could put this. And I realize it means that we can't use it for something else in the next generation, but anything we would build in terms of buildings, there's a lot more options for that than for putting solar somewhere. So I guess to me, I mean, you know, without going into more detail than that and more of the reason for making the case, I guess, you know, like a few people in this room, I'm old enough that we've talked about comp plans for longer than I can remember. We know most of them get stuck on the shelf and forgotten. And when we look at our comp plans and the updates that we're working on, to me, this seems to check a lot of boxes in terms of what we say we value. You know, we all use oil yet, or almost all of us do. I bike here, but I mean, I still have vehicles with fuel. So I understand why we have an Enbridge oil line running through here. I understand that. But if we're going to change things in the next generation, then we need to be willing to do some things like, I mean, I realize this is a small project compared to our total needs for energy, but, you know, we should provide some leadership on this rather than just put something in writing and say somebody else should do it. Because I will tell you, as a landowner, I don't want somebody else telling me what I can and can't do with my land. The law will specify certain things I can and can't do, but I want to be able to do with my land what I choose. And I am open to having a utility scale solar farm there if they can pull enough land together, which means 700 acres or more. And if they can't do utility scale, and the PSC, the Public Service Commission, does the permitting for utility scale. Smaller than that, it would be the county that would do the zoning. On this project, because it lands in the city limits, the city would do the zoning. So to me, it's partly the question, are we going to do some of what we talk about? Or are we not going to do some of what we talk about? And for me personally, out on my land, which is Old Lake Superior shoreline on the higher ground, it's not suitable for row crops anymore. Too much wind erosion, loss of organic matter. It can't take farming anymore, not with row crops. It's got to be in hay, but nobody wants to put it in hay. It's not worth the money on that ground. So for the land, it's going to be better off in solar farm than it is with row crops. There's land out there that's just bare, doesn't grow anything anymore, and it gets worse each year. So I'm willing to say yes to a solar farm on my land because it makes sense in the big picture of things. So I could take some questions on this, Laura, if that's okay, if anyone wants. The February 17th packet for zoning, I wrote some questions, sent them to the administrator. They were not in the packet there, so I pulled up my questions for that meeting. And there was not an agenda bill written for this one. So I understand that nobody had anything to read on this item, which is why I came to this meeting. But if the chair will allow questions, I'd be happy to answer whatever I could.
Is there any questions from the committee?
What's the cost for installation?
The company One Energy did the current solar farm there. And when I talked to the administrator about this, we both were in agreement that we did not want to own the solar farm. So under the proposal here, One Energy would install the solar farm and then sell the project to Xcel Energy. So the first step in this is we would enter into an agreement, terms of an agreement with One Energy, so they can access the land. The person from One Energy who lives in Madison, and ironically, his dad decided to live in Ashland. So when he was up in June visiting, he walked the property and he thinks 15 acres are suitable. 5 he thinks are too wet for what they want to do. So he would examine the property more closely. I asked him for zoning do you need to go through the city on zoning first before we can finalize a contract? And the answer is yes, because they've got to make sure that the city will say yes to this and then think setbacks, for example, from roads and other things. So given there's one solar farm there, we would anticipate, the same guidelines for zoning, but still that has to go forward through the city. So One Energy would build the project and then sell the project. And once they get to a point where they know what they can put in there in terms of solar, so what it'll generate and when they'll be able to connect it, they'll sign an interconnection agreement. And in that agreement, Xcel will then buy the project. They'll know what it'll generate in terms of how much electricity. So One Energy and Xcel will work on that piece. We will simply lease the land to them. We will not own the solar farm. We will not be responsible for maintenance. Currently on the solar farm there, Joma Electric does the maintenance. That's worked out well for One Energy. And they would hire Joma Electric to also to do the maintenance on this if we expand onto the county land. We would simply be leasing the land. Unless the board decides they would rather own it, but putting that in is a rather heavy lift on investment.
So basically what you're saying, it'd be roughly 12,000 per year paid to the county?
The county would.
And the county would have to sign a 10-year lease? Or what, how would that work?
The first step in this is we would sign an agreement that they could access the land, work on developing the project for up to 18 months. And the big takeaway there is we're not going to call somebody else and say, hey, are you interested in this? And then having two companies looking at the same land, because then at most one, could end up putting a solar farm there. So we would give them exclusive rights for up to 18 months to be on the land, examine it, work with the city to get through zoning, and work towards getting an interconnection agreement. And the interconnection agreements, the information on our high voltage power lines, the loads, et cetera, is fairly closely held information, and it's partly for national security reasons. So we cannot simply go, oh, give us all the data on the high voltage power lines. I know the line that runs across my property is 161 kilovolt, but I don't know how much more capacity there is to add a load there. I did ask the company I'm talking to, are you going to have to upgrade that power line? And it's rather amazing what they know about my property. They've researched mine and the neighbors. And he said, we know that it's going to cost us, and I won't share the number, but it's in the millions to upgrade that power line that runs there. And I said, well, I've got an easement and it specifies the number of arms on those posts and the number of wires. So larger diameter wires can carry more power. He said, well, we're going to have to put on bigger arms. There'll still be 3 arms, but they're going to be bigger, and they're going to be larger diameter wires. So another factor in this, if we think about it, if half of our electricity comes from outside the area, and personally, I'm not worried about data centers, because why would you bring that much power here if we only have half of what we already need? It's not cost effective. So, if we don't want bigger power lines and we don't want more power lines running, it means we need more local generation also. But in all likelihood, we're going to have a bigger arms and bigger diameter wires, running through that line. But then you have to put in a large enough solar farm to justify the price tag of upgrading that power line and putting in a substation with battery storage that's going to be 10 or 15 acres. This one here, one of the things I thought about was when they put that one in there, it demonstrated that they had the capacity on that distribution line to connect it to their substation and do the distribution locally. And I also knew the power plant here didn't produce all of our energy. So it turns out they can use the existing substation and infrastructure they have in place to add on to ORDOC solar with what the county has in their property without having to upgrade power lines somewhere or put in a new substation, which pretty quickly gets to be not cost effective unless you can pull enough land together, which for the most part up here is difficult. And the few landowners that have enough land to put something large in are our dairy farmers on Sanborn Avenue, Highway 112. If they want to exit dairy farming, they could rent that land out, or over my neck of the woods, White River Ag. But even then, they need more land than just that for utility scale. And this offer of $800 an acre, the offer that I've been made is $800 an acre, but that's a large solar farm. And if you read the return on investments on these utility scale solar farms with the information you can find from them around the country, what we have right now is, I call it the wild, wild west of putting in solar farms. There are deep-pocketed investors and speculators trying to put these in because of the return on investment. They pay off in 10 to 12 years typically. And yet the life is for 30 years with extensions that can go 5 and 10 more years, up to 50 years and more. So we can, I don't think we're going to get utility scale unless it's my neck of the woods, because we don't have enough land here. And the company I'm talking to, they've looked at Ashland County. They don't see the possibility of utility scale here and being able to pull together that much land where there's a high voltage power line that's suitable. Something smaller perhaps, but not the large stuff. I think we can be proactive if we did this project and learn more. I think we can be proactive on trying to identify some other areas that are private lands and see if other people are interested. This offer of $800 an acre for a small project like this, I was really shocked because that's what they normally pay for larger projects where the return on investment is bigger. This one, because the existing infrastructure there makes it work. Yes.
Is that what you were offered per acre for yours?
I'm also offered 800 per acre. But the return on investment in larger ones is better, but this one can tag on to what's already there. So they're able to offer the $800 per acre there also. And both Xcel Energy and One Energy would put it in, both in separate conversations described it as a nice project.
Okay, but you haven't approached them about the county things because we haven't discussed it as a county board yet?
You mean One Energy?
Yeah.
No, from the zoning meeting back on February 17th, we invited Xcel Energy. So we had a couple of people from there. Outside of meetings, I worked with Xcel Energy, and then connecting to One Energy, we have a proposal from them for the $800 an acre using 15 acres. And in this committee, the reason it's on this agenda, it's public property, but it would then go to executive committee to work on the contract for this term of agreements.
Okay, so I have a question. So zoning put together a package of stuff that had to do with properties when this is the committee where the property stuff is?
I wrote the questions regarding the solar farm for a zoning meeting, in part because I was thinking about, I got this packet from the utility scale in December, which got me thinking about all of the zoning questions. There's a lot. The PSC would do the permitting there. And so it got me thinking about the county. We do not have any zoning regulations on solar that I'm aware of for solar farms. The existing one, Ordoc Solar, is in the city limits, so they did the zoning on that. So it was partly so that we could start thinking about questions related to zoning, think setbacks from roads, things like that, as they're going to be screening. Now that we have a proposal, it's at this committee. But
okay, so you got a proposal that didn't come through our committee?
I have a proposal from One Energy by working with Xcel and One Energy that I received on July 16th and forwarded it to the administrator and board chair at that time. So there is a proposal in front of the county for a solar farm on the county property. We haven't
put it out for an RFP?
I talked to Dan about the RFP. And one is the number is small enough that we wouldn't need to do this. And two is One Energy and Xcel have worked together on the current solar farm. And this offer of $800 an acre is a really, really strong offer. Another thing to keep in mind is with interconnection agreements, which would take up to 18 months to get to by the time One Energy is ready to say, yep, here's what we can put in. We've worked through the zoning issues, et cetera. We don't know, nor would Excel Energy or One Energy know, if at the time they're ready to say, yep, we can put this in and sign an agreement. We don't know if somebody else is working on something where that available capacity to add solar is going to be taken up by somebody else.
Have we held any hearings to see if there is any public support for this?
I would argue that our comp plan says there's public support for it, but I could be wrong on that.
We don't have the comprehensive plan together yet, do we?
Well, we're working on it, but you could look at the one from 2016 and it would seem that a lot of the things from 2016 would be consistent with supporting a project like this.
Pretty much the 2016 was a state template with our name put in there.
Well, there's relatively few places that you're going to put a solar farm, and there's lots more places you can put most other things. But if I'm not mistaken, we're certainly writing goals and objectives that would be consistent with a project like this in terms of climate change, reducing our reliance on fossil fuels, being more energy independent with battery storage, a bit more resilient than otherwise, and then the economic development piece with some local employment related to the maintenance.
Does anybody else have any questions for Pat? I'm gonna put a little piece in here because if you can already tell, I just, this is the first I'm hearing about this. I don't know that we as a county have a plan together for the properties that we own, and mostly the direction that our solar has been taking place has been with buildings and properties that we own, like trying to not take up space that we could use for other purposes, say housing.
Well, certainly you could put housing in lots of places. A couple of years ago, with buildings go away at the farm, I was sure I was going to convert to solar out there. So I spent a lot of time looking at putting solar out there. And it turned out I didn't for a variety of reasons, one of which it was far more expensive than made sense compared to staying on Bayfield Electric. But another thing I learned along the way, and this affects whether I'm willing to support these projects going on buildings if tax dollars are used. These projects where you put solar on the rooftop or a few panels next to a building, on average, they're about 4 times the money per kilowatt or per megawatt than a solar farm. You just have all this equipment. You need your inverter, you need all this other stuff. Some people put in battery storage. They're just really expensive for what you get out of it, about 4 times the money on average. And if I look at our federal deficit, which probably most of you have heard has hit 40 trillion lately, I don't see the future as being putting solar on, just on a building. If you want to do it on your own dime and house, that's one thing, your own payback, which is going to be a long period of time. But I think the day of tax dollars subsidizing solar on small projects, I think those days with our deficits and politics, I think that's going to be really hard to come by. I think what we're going to see more of are smaller solar farms, the 10 to 40 acres, 50 acres, 80 acres here and there, because the return on investment is so much better than the small stuff. And what it means is we just have to accept that we're going to use some of our property for solar farms if we want that energy. And solar and wind are the 2 most cost-effective forms of energy generation. So we're going to have to accept we're going to have more of that if we want electricity, that's affordable.
Well, then maybe there needs to be some more research done with all the properties that we own in the county to see which is the most optimal place to do it.
Well, if you start looking at where your high voltage power lines are, you end up with a pretty short list. And then it's got to be able to connect to the system, which means either a new substation and investment or something existing that you can connect to, which there is at or Dock Solar. And I guess I would also say if the county's owned this for about 10 years, you know, I know various things have been kicked around, but you got to come up with the money, not just our money, but somebody else's money. And then, you know, something needs to be done. I know the mayor doesn't want low-income housing out there. A few years ago out at Mason, one of the government agencies proposed a low-income housing project, and Mason almost entirely showed up to adamantly say no. And so, you know, we need housing, but unless a community says, we'll take that, it's kind of hard to tell somebody that's the housing you're going to get if the community is saying no. I know we could put in low-income housing here, even though the mayor doesn't want it. But we should also think about if the community accepts it.
Well, we haven't had a hearing on that either.
Hey, Laura,
Yeah,
this is Gary. Hey, I just didn't want to hang up and be rude, but I have to go to another meeting, so I'm hanging up at the moment.
all right. We'll just call you hi iPad 7 and
Yes.
and say see you later
Thanks.
then.
Thank you, Laura.
All right.
Bye.
I guess one more comment is I've talked to a board member at Bayfield Electric. Bayfield Electric is a distribution co-op. They don't generate their own power. They buy their power from Dairyland Co-op, which is based out of La Crosse and serves a lot of western Wisconsin and up towards this area. But then there's a gap until you get to Bayfield Electric. And the way that contract is with Dairyland Co-op, Bayfield Electric isn't able to simply say, oh, we want to put in some solar farms. Well, because Dairyland Co-op says you're a distribution co-op. We're not going to simply let you put in some solar farm. Bad River is on Bayfield Electric, and what Bad River is allowed to put in for solar farm apparently is taking up most of the capacity that Dairyland Co-op is willing to give up. So a lot of our land around here, unless you're on that 161 kilovolt line, you're going to connect to Bayfield Electric, which Dairyland Co-op is saying, yes, we need more power, but no thanks for you guys generating it up there. You know, in the coming years, there's got to be some conversations between Bayfield Electric and Dairyland Co-op to allow some solar farms up here that serve this area. But that's going to be a very long conversation, apparently, because Dairyland Co-op is figuring out how they're going to generate new electricity, and they would rather not have the waters muddied on figuring out, well, who's going to generate what where. They just want to take care of that for the most part. So a lot of the rural area here is on Bayfield Electric, which makes, you know, we happen to connect to Excel here, which limits the possibilities outside of the city of Ashland and a few other places that are on Excel.
What is the committee thinking about this?
I agree with what Pat's saying. On being on the planning committee, this is talked about a lot, and I feel like there must be support of the community when so many people talk about it. So I feel like we need to look into it and not just kick the can down the road, actually try to move it forward. I don't know enough about solar to say too much on it. So I guess it'd be nice to hear on that.
Anybody else?
Paul here. Yeah, I'm in support of any revenue on land leases. There's no risk with a land lease.
Well, there is if they build things on it. It's a little hard to have them pick things up and move. Jim, do you have anything?
Yeah, I kind of agree with everything being said. I like the $800 payment part of it there. That's reasonably good money.
Does anybody else want to see if there's somebody's talking there, if there's a better use that can be researched for this. I get that any income is nice, but just having any income for any income, if the property value is higher than that, we might be able to make more of that. I don't know how long this is. Yeah, I myself would like to see some kind of research.
Laura, this is Erica Hanikel. Could I say something really quick?
Sure.
So I have invited Peter Levi of the Nature Conservancy to come to the next finance meeting. I'm sure he's willing to come to any meeting that we might want him. And that was for the purpose of showing us their tool for evaluating properties for renewable energy enterprises, of course, including solar. So that may be one part of the research that you might like to hear about. And secondarily, I was at the WeCan conference. What is that? Climate Action Network for Wisconsin several weeks ago, and made several contacts where I'm sure that if you wanted more options for what we might include in an RFP or expertise on the issue, I'm sure I can connect you with a person that could offer that.
That would seem to make a lot of sense. There's somebody that's thinking. I appreciate that. I also would think that, you know, some input from Mary Jo on what putting solar on some land that has wetland and such by it and how that affects us would be helpful. So everybody agrees we should move forward with some more research? I'm
Do
gonna
we
have
need
to
to
have you.
make a motion?
Yeah,
I make a motion that we move forward with looking into putting solar on the county's farm road property.
are we going to research a little bit more first before we do this?
You can add in research and I guess, yeah, to move it forward.
Wilhelm will second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to move forward with some research and looking at solar also. Any discussion or anything else you guys would like to see in this process? You're talking, I can't hear you because nobody's got their mics on, but probably not. All right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, looks like we have a direction to move forward and look into this. Thank you, guys. Is that all that's on the agenda? Next meeting date. Usually we meet in September, so we're kind of skipping over that, but we do in December have the jail tour and we'll have to have some updates on this stuff. So is everybody looking at your calendar? In December, somewhere between Thanksgiving, not too close to Christmas. The 7th, maybe? So anything else on the other calendar? I see you leafing through that. It's really tiny on my laptop, though.
I don't see anything on the 7th.
Does that work for you guys too? Same, just a Monday at 2 p.m. again?
No conflicts. Wilhelm here.
Okay, that's one of us.
Good to hear.
Okay. How about you, Jim?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, let's go for it. Okay, PLE, 2 p.m. on the 7th. Last thing we have is if somebody wants to do the motion to adjourn.
Wilhelm will motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Paul, second by Marcus. Anybody want to discuss it? All right, all right. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, guys. Good meeting. Thank you for being patient with my tech problems.